Let me ask you a question that might make you rethink everything your grandfather taught you about fishing. Why is it that when the water is absolutely boiling with hungry, aggressive fish, you cast your fastest bait, burn it back, and pull up nothing but weeds and water? We have all been told the exact same thing since we were kids. If the fish are active, you have to reel fast, make them chase it, trigger that reaction strike. But what if I told you that your high-speed retrieve is the exact reason you are going home empty-handed? Today, we are going to break down a hard truth about fishing that most guys refuse to accept. Sometimes when the fish are at their most aggressive, reeling fast is the absolute worst thing you can do. I am going to explain exactly why active fish simply cannot commit to a bait that is moving too fast, and how slowing down just a little bit can instantly double your catch rate. Have you ever missed a massive topwater blow-up because you were walking the dog too fast? Drop a comment and tell me about it, because I guarantee you are not alone. To understand why we make this mistake, we have to look at how we are wired as fishermen. For generations, the golden rule of fishing has been to match the mood of the fish. If they are sluggish and cold, you fish slow and deep. If they are actively busting bait on the surface and chasing shad into the shallows, you fish fast and erratic. It makes perfect logical sense on paper. When you see a feeding frenzy, your heart starts racing, your adrenaline spikes. You want to match that high-energy, chaotic environment with your lure. The tackle industry pushes this idea too, selling us reels with massive gear ratios that pull in 40 inches of line per turn. We have been conditioned to believe that speed equals excitement and excitement equals bites. Anglers do the same thing year after year, burning spinnerbaits and cranking squarebills as fast as humanly possible, thinking they are forcing the fish to react. But while a fast bait might get a fish to look, it does not mean they can actually catch it. And that is where the old-school logic completely falls apart. Picture this. It is early morning. The sun is just starting to peek over the tree line, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The water is slick and calm, like a sheet of glass. Suddenly, the silence is broken. You see water erupting just 20 yards away from your boat. Shad are flying through the air, desperate to escape. A school of big, aggressive predators has pushed them to the surface. Your heart starts pounding in your chest. The adrenaline kicks in immediately. Your instinct takes over, and you fire a cast right into the middle of the chaos. As soon as your lure hits the water, you engage the reel and start cranking the handle as fast as humanly possible. You think to yourself that these fish are fired up. They are in a feeding frenzy. They want a fast, fleeing meal. But then, something frustrating happens. You feel a hard tap, maybe a splash behind your bait, but your rod tip never loads up. You reel in an empty lure. You just missed a golden opportunity, and you are standing there wondering why that active, hungry fish did not get hooked. It is a scenario every single fisherman has faced at least once. We let our excitement dictate our speed, and we pay the price for it. Let us break down the anatomy of that missed strike. When you felt that bump on the end of your line, the fish did not just decide to headbutt your lure for fun. It genuinely wanted to eat your bait. It opened its mouth, flared its gills to create a vacuum, and swiped at your lure. But because you were turning that reel handle like a madman, your bait was moving just a fraction of a second too fast. By the time the fish's mouth closed, the lure was already 2 inches further forward. The fish ended up grabbing just a piece of the tail, or bumping the side of the bait, rather than engulfing the whole thing. We often call these short bites, and we blame the fish for being finicky or non-committal. We tell ourselves they were just swiping at it out of anger. But the brutal truth is that the fish was 100% committed to killing your bait. You just made the target too difficult to hit. A predator's strike is an incredibly precise calculation of speed, distance, and timing. When you unnaturally accelerate that bait, you throw off their math completely. We need to talk about the myth of the reaction strike. We have all heard the term. The idea is that if you reel a bait fast enough past a fish's face, it does not have time to think. It just reacts on pure instinct and bites. And yes, there is some truth to that in certain situations. But here is the problem. Triggering a reaction is not the same thing as securing a solid hookup. A bait is fundamentally an ambush predator. It is built for short, violent bursts of speed from a hiding spot. It is not a cheetah built to chase down prey over long distances. When you burn a bait through the water, you might trigger their instinct to chase, but you are also pushing them to the absolute limit of their physical tracking abilities. When a fish is rushing out of a laydown at top speed to catch a crankbait that is also moving at top speed, the margin for error is razor thin. The faster the pursuit, the less accurate the strike. You are essentially asking a fish to hit a moving bullet while it is also sprinting. It is a recipe for missed opportunities. Think about water displacement and how a fish actually tracks its prey. Fish use their lateral lines to feel vibrations and changes in water pressure. This helps them zero in on a meal even in muddy water or total darkness. When a bait is moving at a natural, moderate pace, it leaves a very clear, traceable hydrodynamic trail. The fish can lock onto that vibration and follow it precisely to the source. But when you are ripping a lure through the water as fast as you can, you create chaotic, turbulent water. Some lures will even blow out, meaning they lose their natural swimming action and start rolling or darting wildly. This creates a massive amount of noise, but it is unreadable noise. The fish's tracking system gets overwhelmed by the messy wake. They know something is there, and they are active enough to want to eat it, but they literally cannot pinpoint the exact center of the lure. So they lunge blindly into the turbulent water, hoping to catch something. More often than not, they completely miss the hooks, leaving you with nothing but a splash and a story about the one that got away. There is a massive difference between a fish being active and a fish being willing to run a marathon. We see them busting the surface and assume they are willing to chase a bait halfway across the lake. But in nature, energy conservation is the ultimate rule of survival. A predator must consume more calories than it expends to catch the meal. If it burns too much energy chasing a fast-moving target, the meal is no longer worth it. Even an incredibly aggressive feeding base will constantly evaluate the return on investment. When you throw a bait and immediately burn it back to the boat, the fish might follow it for 10 or 15 feet. But as soon as it realizes that this particular bait fish is a little too fast, a little too healthy, and is going to require a massive sprint to catch, the predator will just turn around and go look for an easier target. We see this all the time when a fish follows your lure right up to the trolling motor and then sinks out of sight. You think it was not hungry. The reality is you just made it work too hard for a meal. Let us talk about the mechanical limits of your fishing lures. Every single lure in your tackle box was designed by engineers to perform optimally at a specific range of speeds. Take a square-bill crankbait, for example. At a medium retrieve, it has a beautiful wide wobble that aggressively deflects off rocks and wood. It looks exactly like a distracted, vulnerable baitfish. But what happens when you put a high-speed reel on that rod and crank it as fast as you can? The lure cannot handle the water pressure. It starts to turn on its side. It loses its depth, it stops deflecting properly, and just plows blindly through the water. The same goes for spinnerbaits. Reel a spinnerbait too fast, and the blades create so much lift that the bait actually rolls over and breaks the surface of the water, completely ruining the illusion. An active fish is still a smart fish. When it sees a bait rolling on its side, dragging through the water in a highly unnatural mechanical way, it knows something is wrong. Your speed did not just make the bait hard to catch, it actively broke the design of the lure and destroyed its realistic action. Fishermen love to use the excuse that they are imitating a fleeing baitfish. It sounds great in theory. If a bass is chasing a shad, the shad runs away fast, right? Well, yes and no. Have you ever actually watched a school of baitfish being attacked in clear water? They do not just swim in a perfectly straight line at top speed for 50 yards. They dart, they panic, they change directions erratically, and most importantly, they hesitate, they pause. A panicked baitfish will often freeze for a split second to try and blend in, or it gets exhausted and momentarily stalls out. When you cast a lure out and just reel it straight back at a breakneck pace with no pauses and no twitches, you are not imitating a panicked, dying baitfish. You are imitating a perfectly healthy, incredibly fast baitfish that is in total control of its environment. And predators know that healthy, fast baitfish are the hardest ones to catch. They prefer the weak, the injured, and the disoriented. By reeling too fast, you are communicating to the fish that your lure is a high-effort, low-reward target. Water clarity plays a huge role in why fast retrieves fail. Let us imagine you are fishing a lake with stained or dirty water. You only have maybe 2 or 3 feet of visibility. You know there are active fish in the area because you have seen them swirling near the bank. You tie on a vibrating jig or a shallow crankbait and start burning it down the bank. In that muddy water, a bass relies almost entirely on its lateral line until the bait is right in front of its face. Because visibility is so poor, the fish only has a fraction of a second to transition from feeling the bait to actually seeing it and making a strike. If your bait is flying through that strike zone at high speed, the bait is gone before the fish's brain can process the visual information. The fish will lunge at the vibration, but the target has already moved past its field of vision. This is why you get so many aggressive bumps in dirty water that never result in a hooked fish. The fish was fully active and ready to commit, but your speed literally outran their sensory processing abilities. One of the most frustrating things in fishing is the half-eaten plastic worm. You are pitching a swim jig or a swimming worm through some grass. A fish absolutely hammers it. You swing the rod hard to set the hook, and it feels like you hit a brick wall for about half a second and then nothing. You reel your bait back in, and your plastic trailer is bitten clean in half right behind the hook. You curse the fish for being finicky. But think about the physics of what just happened. You were moving the bait rapidly. The fish came up behind it, locked onto the tail, and opened its mouth to engulf the whole thing. But because you were keeping up that fast, steady momentum, the bait was pulled forward just enough that only the tail section made it into the fish's mouth before the jaws clamped shut. The fish fully committed. It wanted the whole meal. Your fast retrieve physically pulled the hook out of the danger zone before the fish could close the deal. If you had just slowed your roll slightly, that bait would have been inhaled completely. If you talk to professional anglers, they will tell you a secret that applies to almost every moving bait. The pause is the ultimate trigger. It does not matter how active the fish are, the actual moment of the strike almost always happens when the bait does something different. Usually, that means stopping. When a fleeing bait fish suddenly stops or stutters, it signals vulnerability. It tells the predator that the chase is over, and the meal is guaranteed. When you use a super-fast, continuous retrieve, you completely eliminate the opportunity to pause. You are taking away the biggest strike trigger in your arsenal. Think about fishing a jerkbait. You rip it hard, but the fish always, without fail, eats it on the slackline pause. If you just reeled a jerkbait straight in as fast as you could, you would catch almost nothing. The same logic applies to crankbaits, spinnerbaits, and swimbaits. Active fish might follow a fast bait, but they will commit and destroy a bait that suddenly pauses and hovers in their face. Speed gets their attention, but the pause gets the commitment. Let us explore the dynamics of a school of actively feeding fish. When you find a group of schooling bass, they are highly competitive. If one fish goes for a bait, 3 others will try to steal it from its mouth. It is absolute mayhem under the water. You would think a fast bait would be perfect here. But watch what happens. You burn a bait through the school. 3 fish rush it at the same time. Because the bait is moving so fast, the fish are not just trying to catch the bait, they are constantly bumping into each other, fighting for position. The chaos of the fast movement plus the interference from other fish means the alpha fish cannot get a clean shot at the lure. They end up swiping at it, knocking it away from each other, and completely missing the hooks. If you slow that bait down and let it flutter or pause in the middle of the school, you give one specific fish a clear, easy target to focus on. Slowing down in a competitive schooling situation actually increases your hookup ratio dramatically because it reduces the chaotic errors of the fish. We have all experienced the boat-side heartbreak. You make a long cast. You are cranking your bait back, lost in thought. Suddenly, the lure appears near the boat, and right behind it is the biggest fish of the day. Its pectoral fins are flared. Its eyes are locked on the bait. You freeze or you try to figure 8, but the fish sees the boat, spooks, and swims down into the depths. It leaves you shaking and incredibly frustrated. But why did that fish follow the bait for 40 feet without eating it? Because it was trying to find the perfect moment to strike, and your steady, fast retrieve never gave it an opening. It was waiting for the bait to hit a rock, or deflect off a stump, or just pause and look tired. Your fast retrieve hypnotized the fish into following, but never triggered the instinct to bite. If you had intentionally slowed down halfway through the retrieve, or killed the bait completely for 1 second, that trailing fish would have rear-ended it violently 30 feet away from the boat. Topwater fishing is where this mistake is absolutely the most common and the most heartbreaking. There is nothing in the world like a topwater explosion. You tie on a walking bait. You see a fish bust on the bank. You cast over there, and you start walking the dog as fast and as violently as you can. Splash, splash, splash. Suddenly, the water beneath your lure erupts like a toilet bowl flushing. You swing hard, and your lure comes flying back at your face. You missed. Why? Because topwater strikes are incredibly difficult for fish to execute perfectly. They are coming from below, breaking the surface tension, and trying to inhale a target that is exposed to the air. It requires pinpoint accuracy. When you are walking that bait at high speed, throwing water everywhere, the fish simply misjudges the speed and location of the lure. They blow up where the lure was a half second ago. If you slow down your cadence, make wider, slower glides with your bait, and leave it in the strike zone longer, those explosions will turn into solid, deep hookups every single time. We have to consider the predator energy conservation law from a biological standpoint. A fish does not know when its next meal is coming. Even when they are heavily feeding, their instinct is to secure maximum calories for minimal effort. A large, mature fish did not get large by being stupid. It got large by being incredibly efficient. When a giant bass sees a bait burning across the surface at 10 miles an hour, its brain immediately does the math. It calculates the energy required to swim out of its ambush spot, accelerate to top speed, chase down the target, and return. Very often, the big smart fish will decide it is simply not worth the effort. They will let the fast bait go right past them, waiting for something easier. Meanwhile, a smaller, younger, less experienced fish might try to chase it down, giving you a false sense of success. If you want to catch the truly big fish, the ones that anchor a tournament bag, you have to present a bait that looks like a high-calorie, low-effort meal. That means slowing down and putting it right in their face. Let us talk about matching the hatch, not just in color and size, but in behavior. Everyone obsesses over painting their lures to look exactly like the local shad or bluegill, but they completely ignore how those bait fish actually move. Observe a bluegill near a dock. It does not swim at a constant, rapid pace. It hovers, it drifts. It makes a short 2-foot dart and then stops to look around. When a bass approaches, the bluegill might freeze in fear or try to slide slowly under a shadow. A fast, continuous retrieve is the most unnatural movement in the underwater kingdom. Even when fleeing for their lives, bait fish tire out quickly. They make erratic, desperate movements, not sustained, high-speed burns. If you want to trick an active, highly aware predator into committing, your lure needs to behave like living creatures behave. Adding pauses, slow drags, and subtle twitches, while generally maintaining a moderate pace, will fool far more active fish than simply putting the reel in high gear and cranking blindly. There is a psychological trap that modern fishing reels put us in. 20 years ago, a fast reel had a gear ratio of maybe 6-to-1. Today, you can easily buy reels with 8 or even 9-to-1 gear ratios. These tools are incredibly valuable. They are designed to let you pick up slackline quickly after a bite, or burn a bait back to the boat once it is out of the strike zone so you can make another cast. But fishermen get lazy. We let the gear ratio dictate our fishing speed. When you put an 8-to-1 reel on a crankbait rod, a normal, comfortable turning speed with your hand translates to a blazing, fast retrieve underwater. You are fishing way too fast without even realizing it. You have to consciously train your brain and your hands to slow down. You have to fight the mechanics of the reel. When you know fish are active, do not let your high-speed reel trick you into pulling the bait away from them. Use the reel to manage your line, but use your brain to manage your lure presentation. Dialing in the optimal speed is a process of constant adjustment, but a good rule of thumb is this. When your adrenaline is pumping and your instinct is screaming at you to reel fast, force yourself to reel 1 or 2 notches slower than you want to. Imagine there is a fish following your bait on every single cast. How would you behave if you knew a 10-pounder was right behind your lure? You would not burn it away from them. You would tease them. You would make it look injured. You would stop it right next to a piece of cover. By consciously slowing your hands down in the heat of the moment, you are doing 2 things. First, you are keeping the lure in the productive strike zone for a much longer period of time. Second, you are giving the active fish plenty of time to track the bait, close the distance, and make a highly accurate, committed strike. You are taking the difficulty out of the meal. You are handing it to them on a silver platter. Let us rethink the concept of the cadence shift. We established that steady speed is bad, and pure fast speed causes misses. The solution for active fish is the illusion of speed, combined with moments of extreme vulnerability. Instead of a fast burn, try using a medium retrieve, but add sharp, aggressive twitches with your rod tip. When you snap the rod, the bait darts wildly, perfectly mimicking the panicked movement that active fish are looking for. But here is the secret. After the dart, the bait momentarily glides and slows down while you reel up the slack. You get the best of both worlds. The aggressive twitch triggers the predatory instinct and gets their attention from a distance, but the momentary glide gives them the exact split second they need to open their mouth and engulf the bait securely. You are satisfying their active mood without making the target impossible to hit. This cadence shift works with almost every moving bait, from chatterbaits to swim jigs, and it absolutely destroys feeding fish. Consider the effect of water temperature on the fish's metabolism. Even in the dead of summer, when the water is warm and fish are at their absolute peak of physical capability, they are still governed by cold-blooded biology. Their energy levels spike and crash. When you see a feeding frenzy on the surface, you are seeing a temporary spike in energy. They group up, push bait to the surface, gorge themselves for maybe 10 or 15 minutes, and then they retreat back to the depths to digest and recover. That high energy state is fleeting. If you are burning a bait during that short window, you are forcing them to burn their limited energy reserves even faster. If they miss your fast bait once, they might not try again because they are already getting exhausted from the frenzy. By offering a slower, easier target right in the middle of that chaos, you become the most efficient calorie source in the area. You will catch the fish that are too tired to chase the real fast-moving shad. The ultimate takeaway for your next trip on the water is this. The next time you find yourself in the middle of a phenomenal bite, when the water is boiling and the fish seem completely reckless, take a deep breath. Acknowledge your own adrenaline. Recognize that your body wants to rush. Then, intentionally do the opposite. Cast your bait directly into the frenzy, but fish it with purpose and control. Do not just blindly turn the handle. Guide the lure, let it flutter, let it pause. Make it look like the most helpless, confused, and easy-to-catch baitfish in the entire school. Give those aggressive fish a target they literally cannot miss. When you stop burning your baits and start focusing on presentation over pure speed, you will notice an immediate change. The short strikes will disappear. The fish will have the bait choked completely down their throats. Your hookup ratio will skyrocket, and you will finally be maximizing the potential of those rare, magical moments when the fish are truly active. Let us tie this all together. The biggest trap in fishing is believing that you have to match the chaotic energy of an active fish with a chaotic high-speed retrieve. We have covered the physics of missed strikes, the truth about reaction bites, and the biological reality that even the most aggressive predators prefer an easy meal over a difficult chase. The plot twist here is incredibly simple, but it completely changes the game. The best way to catch the fastest, most aggressive fish in the lake is to slow down. When you give an active fish a bait that is moving at a manageable speed, with natural pauses and hesitations, you take away their margin for error. They stop swiping and they start eating. It takes discipline to fight your own adrenaline when the water's blowing up, but if you can master that mental shift, your catch rate will absolutely explode. Thank you so much for watching and hanging out today. If this video made you rethink your approach, please hit that subscribe button, give the video a like, and do not forget to write a comment down below. Let me know, what is the fastest bait you throw, and are you going to slow it down next time you're out? Tight lines, and I will see you on the water.